you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Oh, that'll be a pick six. Heading the other way. Baylor's in the end zone. Touchdown. Second consecutive week for a pick six by Jalen Petrie.
This segment with former Baylor defensive coordinator Phil Bennett is sponsored by the Nitchie Group Insurance Company, where clients are more than just a policy number. See why thousands of Texans trust the Nitchie Group with their home, auto, benefits, and commercial insurance coverage. Call their Waco office to speak with an expert at 254-420-3900 or visit them online at tngins.com. Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this November the 16th, a Monday. Baylor drops to 1-5. They have the off week, and then Kansas State next. We're now joined by former Baylor defensive coordinator, longtime coach Phil Bennett with us on SicEm365 Radio. Do you have a sunburn? Are you still in Hawaii, or are you back?
You know what? I took the red eye back Saturday night, but I do have a little bit of jet lag. I'm not going to lie to you.
But you always find time for us, even when you were in Hawaii. We appreciate that so much. Phil, where does this Baylor football team go from here? That was a very that's got to be just it just seems like it piles on. That another winnable game, and then they can't finish the game.
Well, you know, it's a slippery slope right now. And I say that not being said lightly. It's, you know, how, you know, they're hearing everything that's wrong with them. Nothing's right. And, you know, human nature tells you, well, it's this, it's that, and then doubt creates. And you know, once again, you know, that was a game that was within reason to win and just didn't do the things necessary to win. So, you know, as I repeat myself, it seems, but it's up to the people in charge and the leadership of that team to keep, you know, preparing at a high level. The coaches, you know, getting better, knowing their personnel, which I see, you know, they are doing a better job of knowing what they've got. And then the players have to take it upon themselves to make the plays that are available to help them win.
Phil, do they look better to you, though, the last 2 weeks? They look to me like they're playing better, aren't they?
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And that's what I said. It's obvious to me they're not just playing better. They're being used better. You know, the only thing that bothered me in the whole game, you know, playing at Texas Tech, I've said this many times. I've played there so many times. It's a tough place to play. I don't care if there's no fans there or not. It's just a unique place. And with that said, at the end of the game, I would have liked us to have been a lot more aggressive defensively when we got them backed up on the 14th. And you know, a field goal is going to beat you. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, I just thought that and this is being a little critical, but I thought we were too, you know, I can go throughout my career. I've been burned too, being more aggressive. But the majority of the time, you know, it's best to try to get them in second and long, you know, get them in downs that they're not used to. And we had done it a lot during the game, but we just sort of, we weren't in prevent, but we didn't play with the aggressive attitude that the situation called for.
Coach, how about Jalen Petrie with a second week in a row of a pick six, and obviously he's being leaned on heavily this year, and even more so with Terrell Bernard out. But, I mean, I know you've talked about him before, but just incredible, you know, what he's been able to accomplish so far.
Just a great story inside and out. You know, he epitomizes Baylor. You know, he's a kid that we thought was good enough. We committed him. He stuck with his commitment, had an injury, and he's a football player. Just like we all thought he was. And you know, he plays with great enthusiasm. He has an understanding. You know, if you ever spoke to him, he's an intelligent kid. But talking, I remember when he was a young guy and he came to our camp, he had an understanding of how to play football, and he plays that way. It was outstanding play.
Phil, when you have a team that has now slipped almost off the edge at 1-5. They're not going to play for any championship. They have 3 games left, and I don't know. I think everybody might get in the bowl game, but that's irrelevant right now. As a coach, you have to win now. You owe it to those who have been there to win now, the seniors, whether there's a mulligan year or not, to win now. Is that correct? And yet, what is the fine line of also looking at the future, especially with the bye week coming up?
Well, I think, I think number one, your objective is to win and prepare every game like it's a championship. And that's harder said, done than said, without question. But once again, that will come from the coaches. That's their job. That's why they're getting paid and going out and coaching these guys with enthusiasm, which I know they'll do. And then when they're sitting in meetings, they've got to start looking at the future also. And they've got to say, all right, does somebody, wherever position, is there opportunities for us to put them in the game? And we need to evaluate, because I want to tell you something. They're not only evaluating the people on the field, they're evaluating the backups. They need to see where they are athletically and position-wise in recruiting needs. I mean, that's obviously that's going to be a big need for them. I think, I told a friend of mine, he said, what do you see different? And I can tell you quite honestly, there's with Terrell out and offensively with not having, I don't see anybody that's dynamic on our offense right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that offensive line has been a sort of a hodgepodge. It's been tough because the coaches have had different people in there. So they have to get people evaluated to say, hey, are these guys good enough for us to win the Big 12 with? So you be loyal, absolutely, to the seniors, but you also be loyal to the program.
Phil, Patrick Lawrence was just in here with us, and he talked about in the transition between coaching staffs with Matt Rule, part of the invaluable things was the little things that Rule was able to do, having, barbecues or little team gatherings. They haven't gotten to do that this year, obviously, because of COVID, but maybe now because they're practicing and being together, that chemistry is starting to build. It's not something that's a magic formula, but are you seeing the more time spent, the chemistry's building?
Oh, no question. I mean, listen, this has been the most unique year in the history of college football. And God bless those coaches. And I say this with all sincerity, to come in, not have a spring, trying to get to know people, week to week, get the game canceled, having this guy eligible, not eligible. And I think you said it earlier, Paul, the last, and there's been more games they've been in, but the last 2 weeks, you've seen guys play at a much higher intensity level, and you've seen more guys involved in being the ability to make plays. Guys are getting to know their players better, and you can see that. So, yes, I agree with you 100%.
Phil, the locker room. I asked Dave Aranda this earlier today in his teleconference about how can he and has he monitored how they're reacting within the locker room. The offense struggles, the defense is playing really well, although they gave up the long drive. And you can get into something that's splintered, fractured, finger pointing. And he said that he feels like he kind of has an idea of where they are. And yeah, everyone's kind of mad right now. They're all pissed. How do you monitor that as a coach?
Well, I think the head coach and the coordinator set the tone. I mean, the easiest thing in the world is to point the finger. And I think that when you look at the game, you can say, well, the offense didn't do good enough and the defense did. Well, you can also at the end of the game, you say, well, we had the lead and we lost it. So that's why they call it a team, Smokey. And I think Dave can talk about it, preach it. I thought when I went to Baylor, one of the things I told Art, I said, the defense has to quit being the stepbrother here. They've got to be all involved. We got to be accountable, but yet we've got to. And Art knew that, and we did. We became a team, and we lived and died together, and there was a bond. And when we competed against each other, I told a friend of mine the other day, I never had more fun than our scrimmages when I was at Baylor, because they were highly, combative, and they were contested, and there were coaches getting after each other and players, and it made us better. And that's the thing that I look at that they haven't had with the time to do that. And I think that just their leadership from the coaches will keep any of that locker room from being said. Because nobody wants to be the guy that says, "Oh, it's the defense's fault or offense's fault." Hey, it's a we thing, and it's got to come from the top. And I'm sure Dave's doing that.
Phil Bennett with us every Monday at 5 o'clock on SicEm365 Radio. Paul?
Phil, nationally now, Notre Dame had the big win over Clemson, and a lot of times, look, the last time they beat a number one team, they beat Florida State and then came back and Boston College beat them the next week. And this history kind of repeats itself when they had to play Boston College again, but they responded the week after a big win over a big team. Does that mean that Notre Dame is maybe taking the next step to actually be a legit contender?
I watched the whole Clemson game, and obviously without Lawrence, they were a little bit different. But I thought that defensively, I knew they could move the ball. They have the freshman running back or sophomore running back on offense, but defensively, they were impressive, and they were better than what I thought they were. I thought they played with they lined up well. They played the run and the pass. And I think, with their quarterback, he's had a lot of reps. They can run the ball. I think that, yes, I think without question, if I'm from the games I've seen, they're a top 4 team right now.
Coach, what'd you think of Monty's big win over SMU? I know Kaz is over on that sideline. You got a lot of connections to both of those programs, but a nice win for the Golden Hurricane.
Well, I want to tell you something. Showed from Zach.
Yeah,
was a guy. Zach. I watched. I'm not going to be lying to you. I watched it. It was 24-7. I thought, wow, they just can't get going. And then I walked out. The next thing I know, the game was turning, and Phillip kept them going. They did a really nice job of stopping. SMU started off with great firepower, slowed the game down, and came back and made the plays to win, and it was a huge win. That's one of the things, a great example. Last year, Tulsa lost 4, just like Baylor right now. They lost games that could have gone either way, and they were just a hair short, and that's just sometimes, Baylor last year won a lot of close games, and for whatever reason, playmaking skills or experience, they're not able to win those games right now.
Phil Bennett with us on SicEm365 Radio. Now, I had a chance earlier today. We'll have the interview a little bit later in the week. I had a chance to visit with Art Briles earlier today on his Mount Vernon team. East Texas. You know how talented
Big
that
win against the Bears.
Against Gladewater. They beat the Gladewater. When you see them come off the bus, you go, oh, my God. I mean, that's part of what your brother coached there. Jefferson had those great games with Dangerfield.
Yeah.
How big a win was that for him?
It was huge. And Art has told me, he said, Phil, we're not as talented. I guess they lost their running back. He said, but the thing about these kids, he said, don't tell them that they can't win. He said, because they feel like they can. And my brother Jerry had told me before the game, he said, this could be a tough night for Art. And then I get this text. I wake up in the middle of the night, and why? He goes, they beat them. And that's something, the Art's belief system is he gets to every kid. And I know he's excited. Somebody sent me a picture, and he was glowing. It was fun to see.
Yeah, that was a nice win for them. Anytime you can beat one of those teams.
Phil, I went to his first practice. I guess was that last year. That was last year when they had the media availability for him, and I got a kind of a chuckle out of everything because that team had been running the slot tee before he got there.
Right.
And so he was out and he was telling them, like, look, go out past the hash, and they're like, what? Like, no, go out there. It's fine. It's legal. Go ahead. And it took him, you could see him, he was, of course, having fun with it, but it took him half the practice to get them to understand, like, no, you're allowed to go there. It's not, you don't have to stay in the slot.
Well, he told me he's had a lot of fun, and the people up there have been wonderful. And I think it's been great for Art. He loves, I told this many times, I don't know if I've been around a guy that enjoys just the passion of football as much as he has.
He told me today that he loves to turn the light on and the camera on. The light's off and the camera on, and he's at peace when it comes to watching film. Is that what you got from him as well? He loves the game day challenge as well, loves winning. He still won't use that L word. Non-wins is how he describes the loss, which is kind of what he's always been. But when he's in a film room, and we hear this about Coach Aranda, when the lights are on or you got a clinic going on and it's just like you're at peace with that. Is that the way you were, or did you like game day?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Being in Hawaii, I was over there and I'm trying to help them with some things. But I think that's probably put very well. There's a calmness. It's about sort of who you are. But the thing that I really believe about Art and myself and Dave, and we also like to take that and the challenge of transferring your knowledge into a player's knowledge. We were so dynamic on offense and we got so much better defensively, and Art's system is unbelievably simple. His verbiage and we sort of built on that with defense, and just he has a unique ability to get his knowledge transferred to those players.
Phil Bennett with us. Craig, anything else? Nope. Is that one reason why you think that sometimes the transition from Baylor's offense to the NFL became difficult, especially for the wide receivers?
Oh, yeah, no question. Hey, listen, there's guys in the NFL that all they've ever done is work in front of a computer. And they're ate up by listening to themselves with verbiage. Now, not the great ones, but if you've ever listened to people like Gruden call a play, it's ridiculous. It's not that complicated. X, Y, Z, banana crossing, slot. That's the biggest bunch of BS. And then take a 10-yard sack and they blame the quarterback. And that's the thing in college right now. You see the Ole Miss South Carolina game, 1,500 yards offense. Nobody could get lined up. And I see everybody. One of the things, you can't play defense or offense without getting lined up right. And so simplicity, the ones who can be simple. Reason Brent Venables had learned from playing Art. He told me many times. He said, I'm not the coach. He said, Art helped me become a better coach because I had to be simple. And that means something.
That is interesting, isn't it? That's a great way to describe it. Did you cuss him out when he offered you the job? You said, yeah, I'll take it, but I hate you for the offenses that are being run in college football today?
I tell you what, I told you the story one time. I was in Shreveport, and Billy Napier, who I worked with at Arizona State, came in, and we were at one of the schools, one of the private schools, and he said, hey, Coach Saban's out in the car. I said, well, tell him to come in. Go get him. And, he I don't know, he don't want to get. I said, tell him I'm in here. So Nick came in. And Nick came in, and Nick had great respect. He goes, hey, Phil, get your staff, and let's come down. Let's talk about, let's talk about the offenses. These offenses we're all having to face now. And I said something to Art about it, and I wasn't stupid. And Art goes, hell no, you're not going down.
Hey, on Brent Venables, he's going to be a candidate, I'm sure, at South Carolina now that they've let Muschamp go. Do you think I think he's ready to be a head coach, don't you, Phil?
Oh, there's no doubt. It's on Brent's timeline. He's a wonderful guy, wonderful coach. There's some things, though. One of the things that Brent knows, he knows himself. He's got a son playing at Clemson. He's got another one that's coming up. He's not one of these chasers. He's not a guy that he can be comfortable with who he is. And I think that speaks volumes about him. I know Coach Snyder used to tell me, Brent was a walk-on from Salina. He was just a sharp, great young man. And he's done a fabulous job, everywhere he's been.
Phil, what do you think right now Dave Aranda is experiencing? He's obviously a cerebral, an incredible person, Obviously, this is a tough time. What they've experienced, as you said, is the worst thing in college football history as far as having to try to put football teams together. Some are succeeding, some are not. Penn State's 0-4. Michigan can't win. What do you think right now? How does he just bunker down, go into the X's and O's? What do you do right now?
Well, first of all, I know Dave, not greatly, but I know him well enough. Number one, he's a guy of faith. He believes in what he's doing. He believes he can impact these kids. I know, everybody wants to criticize his staff, and he's going to protect his staff, which he should. Now, he's coaching them. I guarantee you, he's coaching them. And you learn, you don't panic. I mean, and just like Paul said earlier, I've seen dramatic improvement as a team the last 2 weeks in position. Let's just face it, last 2 weeks at the end were heartbreaks. And you keep pressing that button, the rewind, and you keep imposing your thoughts, your beliefs. I hate the word culture because a culture, for some reason, I don't like it. But his beliefs, and those kids will see, you know what, this guy believes in what he's telling them. And he's a stand-up guy. He has a stand-up staff. I know every one of them. And he'll be the guy that goes around picking them up. I can remember I went 0-12 at SMU. We played 7 games that we could have won right at the end. Just couldn't do it. We weren't good enough. Now, I can say that now, but you keep looking for the edge. How can we get then you go 3-9, then you go 5-6. And I'm not saying that, but it will, if they can finish, find a way to beat K-State. That's the number one thing. Find a way to win one. And then the next week, regroup and do it again. And I say this so much. I mean, being a leader is action. It's not so much words, it's action. And I've had people tell me, well, Dave's not very excitable. You know what? You don't have, has anybody watched maybe the best coach in the history, Bill Belichick? Have you ever watched him? Mm-hmm. I mean, would you ever think that anything would give him a ride? But he's a teacher. And whether Dave's leading the cheers or he's sitting there analyzing the game, it's the preparation that they're starting tomorrow and today to get ready for K-State. And as you said, with an open date, I will bet you there will be some things that they will have time as a staff to sit around, evaluate, hey, should we get this guy? Should we start looking at this guy? And I think you'll start seeing a little movement for the future.
He actually said that Tony Dungy told him back when he spoke to him, he leans on him a little bit, there's going to be a time when you're going to lose, and people are going to look at your personality as the reason the team plays the way they do. And he said, don't ever change who you are. Tony Dungy was that way. Lovie Smith was that way. You mentioned Belichick. And that's it. You are out there. I mean, everyone knows what's on the sleeve, on the edge of your everyone knows your emotion, right? There's just certain people built differently.
And you know what? That's just who Dave is. And that's okay because he's been pretty damn successful.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing, if I had to say, anybody that knew me, I never changed who I worked for, who I was. And I think that's something to be commended. And I wouldn't ask Dave to say, hey, try to go out and to do some hype job that you're not feeling. Don't do that. Be the coach that you are.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it. Craig, anything else? Paul, thank you, buddy. That's Phil Bennett, jet lag and all, with us on SicEm365 Radio. Craig, an update from Baylor Athletics?
Well, I would say Nick Saban's not a big personality either, if you really think about it. There's nothing he does in his press conferences.